to the Franklin Pierce University New Faculty Orientation. In this module, we are going to be covering all things related to effective grading and feedback for your classes and your students. We will be covering these 4 areas: best practices for grading, providing constructive feedback to your students, strategies for fair and consistent grading, and time management for grading. We're going to be doing so by going through a number of different items, and we're going to begin here in Canvas. Now, Canvas, as you know by now, is the learning management system that we use here at Franklin Pierce University. And within Canvas, there are a number of tools that can be used toward grading for your projects, your assignments, and anything else that you attach to your classes. This particular class here is my upcoming web design class, and I'm going to be using this as the example class. But obviously, however you set up your class in Canvas will probably look a little bit different, but I'm just going to be covering the tools that are related specifically to grading. So once you have your basic class shell set up in Canvas, I would definitely recommend going to the Assignments tab. In the Assignments tab, which I have here set up for this web design class, I have it broken down a couple of different ways. First of all, there are different sections for what gets graded in class. There is a historical or speculative paper or digital poster and digital poster that the students work on, which is one section. And you can see here that that's worth 20% of their grade. Now, of course, weighting your grades based on different types of content or different types of assignments is not uncommon, and you can do that here in Canvas. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that in a second. The second section is sort of the larger section that I just titled Projects, and that's worth 60% of their grade, as you can see over here. And I try to break down projects into multiple deliverables or multiple items that have to be turned in at different dates and times, as opposed to just saying, here's the entire project, and you're going to turn the whole thing in all at once. For example, Project 1 has 3, and I like to call them deliverables. That's a term that's common in the world of design, but of course you'll have your own terminology. So I have them turn it in 3 deliverables so that they can see the specific date and time that each one is due, and it helps break it down in terms of how it gets graded. Now, collectively, it gets graded, as a whole. All of the projects collectively are worth 60% of their grade, but each individual time they turn something in, they get an individual grade toward that. And I just find that it helps students really kind of see what the upcoming goals and requirements are in a much more digestible, bite-sized format. And then you can see Project 2 here also has 3 deliverables, but there's also sort of a pre-project step called Prep Steps, which is just sort of things they have to do in advance prior to starting the project. So I even include that in the grading. There's a final presentation for the class, which also gets included here, but could also go into their own section as well. And then for any honors students in the class, they have an honors project. And then the last section for their grading in this particular class, which is worth 20% of their grade, is attendance and participation. And you can choose to have your own participation guidelines for your class, whatever you would like them to be. But I tend to have a policy on this in terms of participation. It's not really just about attendance, but it's also about how active they are in class, how much they participate in critiques or class discussions. I even grade on how often they are on Canvas and interacting with the materials that I give them on Canvas. You can track this in Canvas, which is something we can show you in a different module. So that is also part of their grade. Now, the nice thing about the way the assignments work in Canvas here is that not only can you break it down into sections, which are weighted differently, but then each individual part, so I'll just click on this first one here, the background research for this assignment. You can see that the assignment gives lots of details here about what the assignment is, what the various details are they need to know, what they're actually turning it in. I repeat over and over again when things are due. I don't just rely on their ability to use the built-in calendar in Canvas or to remember when things are due, so I'll take every opportunity to repeat it. Like here, I say that it's due in week 4. You can use specific dates. I tend to do both. I'll give specific dates in some places, but I'll also refer to it as the week we are in for that semester. Each semester is 15 weeks plus a 16th week for finals. So I number the weeks. And then any other information they might have, I'll include links in the description of the assignment if it's helpful to them. This is a fairly long assignment with a bunch of different material. But aside from it being written out here inside assignments, I will also have a PDF version of the assignment that they can download and keep if they choose to. So if they click here, they can download that handout, and so here's the handout version of that same assignment. And the reason I include a PDF handout as well is that some students like to have digital copies of the assignments that they can put on their computer, store in their Google Drive or in their OneDrive, and so they always have it with them. So they don't constantly have to be on Canvas to be able to access the assignment. So this way they have two different ways to really get all the details of the assignment. And then it explains, of course, how many points the project is worth. Again, there's the due date with the specific time. And if there's a rubric, it would also appear here as well. And we'll talk more about rubrics in a minute, but I'm going to give you an example of one with the rubric. So I'm going to jump ahead to sort of part 3 of this assignment here, and then again there's the written version of the assignment, there's the handout, but here's the rubric that's being used for the assignment. So in Canvas you can attach a rubric to any assignment, and the rubrics are saved in sort of a rubric bank or a rubric library, and when you make rubrics for your classes, no matter which class you make them in, they're available in all of your classes. So this is my writing rubric that I use, and we'll go over more of these in a minute. And you can set up your rubric so that when you are grading, as you click through the different competency levels for each grading criteria, that total score will be used to actually grade the assignment. And there's also a place where you can leave feedback. So that certainly comes in handy. Now, of course, all of these assignments that you take the time to carefully enter into Canvas and put them into their individual sections and attach rubrics for, those are all then immediately reflected over here in the grade book. And note that, the grade book is, of course, part of the main menu here in Canvas. It would just go to grades, and that takes you to the grade book. So here are the students enrolled in the class, and obviously the semester hasn't started yet, but these are all those exact same assignments that we just saw in assignments, but now popping up here in the grade book. Of course, when the students log in and look at their grade book, they can only see their own name. They obviously can't see their classmate's name. But you can click on the title of the assignment, and it takes you back to that assignment that we were just looking at. Or if you click on the kebab menu here to the right, it gives you some options for how to view the grades and to go in and actually do some grading. So once something is turned in, you can go to the speed grader, and this is the part where you can actually do some grading. Now, of course, nothing's been turned in yet, but when it does get turned in, it appears here. And Canvas does a really good job of displaying various file types clearly. There are very few file types that you will have to download directly onto your computer to grade. Everything from Word documents to Google Docs to PDFs to even some Adobe proprietary file types like Adobe Illustrator, PowerPoint presentations. The majority of the file types that you would probably be having students submit work as are viewable within Canvas, which gives you a chance to view them. Now, some of them, like Word documents, for example, you can actually annotate and leave notations on directly here in Canvas as well. There's a place for you to add comments if you have a rubric attached to the assignment. So, for example, if we go to this one here that had the rubric that we just looked at a little while ago, you'd be able to not only add comments, but you can go ahead and hit the rubric button, and this allows you to view that exact same rubric that we just saw. And you can see that as I hover over each skill level, each point level, that I can click on it and it goes ahead and assigns the points to that particular grading criteria, and then it will total it up And once we hit save, it goes ahead and assigns the grade to the assignment. So the student can not only see their grade, but also go into the rubric and see which point level they were assigned. And we'll talk about how the rubrics are constructed and written in a moment. Now, as far as leaving comments for students, I generally recommend leaving comments within Canvas because it gives them sort of a record of what your thoughts were on the assignment that they turned in. The criteria, of course, for how you leave comments is entirely up to you. You know, you could subscribe to the compliment sandwich method, where you start out with a compliment and then get into some of the details about how they can improve and what they could have done better, and then end with a word of encouragement. But ultimately, that's obviously up to you. Now, as far as leaving comments, you can leave just written comments. You click within the text box and you can type out whatever your comments are. You can also leave you can also go ahead and record a video if you would like. And that includes either screen capturing or just a video of you. Some faculty like to leave videos of themselves because it feels a little more personal, but you can also leave a screen capture video, which means that would give you the opportunity to have their assignment up on your screen, and so you can point to various things while you are talking about it in the screen capture video. So that's a really nice function. You can also add attachments if you want to add some things that are relevant to your feedback. Once you submit that, of course, the student will get not only the rubric grading, their overall grade, but whatever comments you give them. So that's a fairly robust way of leaving feedback for your student. Students will get alerted in Canvas to when their project has not only been graded, but also when they receive comments or whatnot. Now, students can also go ahead and place comments in the assignment too. So when you open up a new assignment that's been submitted, you might get a comment from the student that's talking about the assignment, but they can also leave comments in response to your comments. So make sure you have your alerts turned on in Canvas so that you can know that you get those. And you know, sometimes that comes in handy, and it's a good way to communicate with your student back and forth outside of class. Now, the last place in Canvas that is relevant to grading, of course, is the syllabus. Syllabus, again, appears in the main menu in the main navigation here, and you can copy and paste sections of your syllabus here. I also have a PDF version of my syllabus, just like I supply students with a PDF version of their assignment in case they want that for their record, so they can download that. But as far as grading goes, you'll notice that under course summary, because I've gone ahead and populated the assignments section, those are replicated here under course summary in syllabus. So again, it's all those same assignments, but here they're organized chronologically by date and time. So another way that really helps students stay organized. This will also populate their calendar. Each student has their own Canvas calendar, which keeps track of everything that's due for them across however many classes that they're taking. And so when you take the time to populate your assignment section, it not only populates your course summary under your syllabus, but it populates their calendar, which really makes their life a lot easier, and I would highly suggest doing that. It takes a little bit of time, but I think it's a really important way to hold students accountable and give them the materials that they need to stay on top of what is due. Furthermore, of course, if there are weighted grades, like I did in my assignments, that will show up here for the student, so they can always be reminded of like which types of projects are weighted differently and how that total is. So again, these sections in Canvas all work together to really not only help you grade effectively, but give the students the information they need to understand their grades better. Moving on from Canvas, let's talk about some best practices and constructive feedback. So to do that, we are going to take a look at what I'm going to call means of assessment. Now, this here is for the program that I teach in digital media design, but most programs have content like this, and I would totally encourage you to develop your own for your own classes as well. Now, this is not directly about your class, but I always like to have the program description handy when I'm thinking about grading and setting up my grading, because the better I understand the program that I am teaching under, the better I can understand what the objectives of each class is. And then to that end, I also have the program objectives for the program that I'm teaching under. These are the overall objectives for the digital media design program. Each program of study has their own objectives. And of course, I also like to see what classes are in the program. Even if I don't teach all of them, I'm teaching some of these or even one of these. And I kind of like to know what the other classes are that my students are taking so that I can sort of understand what's expected of them before and after I have them in my class. It helps with, what my grading expectations are. I also keep a list of sort of what the bullet point requirements are for each class. Like what it is that they are supposed to be learning in each class, what those course objectives are. Now I'm doing it for the entire program because I oversee the entire program, and I teach many of these classes. But even if you have them just for the classes you teach, that certainly comes in handy. And all of this speaks to like how you are grading. In my classes, because they are visual design classes, we do a lot of critiques. Obviously writing classes, any other sort of visual class, they also do that. So I have a system called functional criticism that we use for like how we conduct visual design critiques in class. If you do any kind of group critiques or any kind of group grading, it is helpful to have at least a one sheet explaining like how do the rules work when we are grading each other or critiquing each other. What is the criteria by which we will follow? So this is for that. And then grading rubrics. Now, rubrics, of course, you are probably familiar with. You've either seen them or you've written them or you know what they are. Certainly, if you haven't already, take the time to design some rubrics that you're going to use in your classes. I am a big fan of rubric categories that I use in multiple classes, as opposed to writing rubrics just for each specific class or each specific assignment. So I try to keep them general enough that they work in multiple classes, but also specific enough that the students can really understand why they're getting graded the way they are getting graded. It helps a couple of different ways, because if they're general enough that they can be used across classes and across assignments, then they become familiar to students who take multiple classes in that program or with me as the faculty member, so that they're like, oh, I understand how this project works or how this project is getting graded because I've seen this rubric before. So these are the rubrics I use in my classes. I have a research and writing rubric, which I just showed you. I have a rubric for discussion boards or for group discussions, and I have two different design-based rubrics for basic to intermediate coursework and then intermediate to advanced coursework. One's a little more detailed than the other. And then portfolio and project presentations. Obviously, the rubrics you use in your class will be specific to the type of subject matter that you teach, but this is just some examples. Now, as far as the rubrics go, I usually try to fill in all of the criteria with as much feedback that is useful. In the comments section in Canvas that I just showed you, I'm going to write more free-form content that is feedback that is a little more ad-libbed, a little more inspirational or helpful to students. Hey, great job, that came out really good. However, it's helpful to have some pre-written feedback based on the grading criteria, so that they can really understand why they're earning certain points, right? So, in this rubric, they start out with a minimum of 10 points per grading objective or grading criteria, and then I can get all the way up to 25 points based on, what they've earned total. But based on the different grading criteria and objectives here, I write these little feedback blocks that are impassionate and sort of, just gets to the point of why it is you earned the grade level that you earned. And then collectively, once these are all checked off in the interactive rubric, they can really sort of see a picture of like, oh, I did really well on the analysis portion of this, but I could maybe have improved on my organization and structure, and it sort of identifies where. So meaning they're not just looking at the points, they're actually getting some written feedback that helps them with that. And then if they do come to talk to you about the grade, and you have that conversation, you can refer back to this, and it gives them a really good point of reference for how they earned that grade. I think the more detail you can give students, the better off everybody will be in understanding how they earned the grade that they earned. And so, I have a variety of different rubrics for this. These are just a few of them. Now, the discussion rubric is a little different in that it's the same sort of idea. There are grading criteria: comprehension, timeliness, engagement, and writing mechanics for the discussion board. And I even keep track of which classes I use these rubrics in, just for my own benefit. But the feedback for these, because it's a discussion board, is a little more conversational. And that's just the way I like to do it for discussion boards, just because it feels appropriate for a discussion board to be a little more conversational. So you'll see that I'm writing a little more familiar. Your initial discussion post this week was excellent, whereas the feedback on the previous rubric we just looked at is a little more detached, right? Just a little more factual. Sometimes I will also include links in the feedback that can be helpful to them, because I'm not just giving them feedback, but if I have places for them to go to get some more information, I might as well link it inside the feedback as well. So this one's a little more fleshed out in terms of the actual feedback. But either way, you might already have a bunch of rubrics that you use. Maybe you need to develop some, but I would totally suggest doing so. Now, these I just put together I used Apple Numbers, but you can certainly use Excel or whatever spreadsheet software you're comfortable with. I think it's a good idea to build these in those programs, have them available as PDFs or Excel files so that you can share them with your students, as well as having them embedded in Canvas too. Talk a little bit about sort of time management for grading. Now, this is an area that's, obviously individual to every faculty member, but I think it's important to set aside specific time during the week to get your grading done. My general premise for grading is that if I am asking students to turn in their work on a specific date and time, then I should make sure that I'm giving them timely feedback in return. For example, in my classes, most projects, most assignments are due Fridays by 9 p.m., and I usually work to have all the grading back to students by the following Tuesday by 9 p.m. So basically the turnaround time is pretty quick. Obviously, that's just the way I do it, but whatever system you come up with, my only major suggestion is to get grading back to students in a timely manner, because I just think it's the fair thing to do. When you're asking them to hit deadlines, we should get their grades back to them in a way that works as well. Now, so to do that, of course, you got to plan out your week. I personally set aside 1 day a week to pretty much spend the entire day grading, but that just happened to work for my schedule. Depending on other demands and scheduling requirements you have in your life, you're going to maybe do it a little bit differently. However, I would basically say for each class that you're teaching, that takes up about 3 hours a week to actually teach the class, I would expect to set aside the exact same amount of time to grade for the class. So if you're in class for 3 hours, I would expect that you're going to need at least 3 hours to grade that same class on a week-to-week basis. Now, that obviously is going to fluctuate based on what assignments are due that week and the types of assignments that you assign. Okay, so hopefully that is just some useful tips for grading here at Franklin Pierce University, not only through the LMS, but in general. And as usual, if you have any questions, be sure to contact us at the CTL, at ctl@franklinpierce.edu, and we are happy to work with you on anything that you could possibly need help with. Thank you very much.